The last rays of the sun painted the sky orange as Officer James steered his patrol car through the quiet streets. It felt like the end of another ordinary shift, until a sound shattered the calm. A child's cry, sharp, desperate, impossible to ignore. James's head snapped to the side just in time to see her, a little girl, no more than 6, sprinting toward him. Her face streaked with tears, her tiny hands shaking so badly she could barely form words. Her pink dress was crumpled, her hair tangled as if she'd been running for miles. Between gasps, she begged, "Please, follow me home." The look in her eyes froze him. It wasn't just sadness. It was raw fear, mixed with a fragile spark of hope. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a plea for help, and James knew instantly he couldn't turn away. Before we continue, if you believe in the power of compassion, of second chances and small acts of kindness that change lives, take a second to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Stories like this deserve to be heard. James wasted no time. He stepped out, crouched so his eyes met hers, and said softly, "You're safe now. I'll help you." Her little hand clutched his, pulling him with urgency. She didn't speak much as they hurried through the neighborhood, only glancing back to make sure he was keeping pace. But with every step, unease grew in him. The streets narrowed, the houses older, some with cracked walls and peeling paint. A silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by their rushed footsteps. Something was wrong, he could feel it. When they reached her home, his chest tightened. The yard was overgrown, weeds curling over broken steps. The front door hung slightly open like an unfinished warning. The girl pointed inside, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Mommy's in there. She won't wake up." James's breath caught. He pushed the door gently and stepped into a dim, suffocating space. The living room told a story of struggle. Empty food containers on the floor, unpaid bills scattered across a table, and an air thick with neglect. Led by the girl, he entered a cramped bedroom. On the bed lay a young woman, barely in her 20s, motionless. For a moment fear gripped him. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, pulse weak but there. Her breathing shallow. She wasn't resting. She was in danger. James grabbed his radio, calling for an ambulance, his other hand steadying the child. "What's your name?" he asked gently through broken sobs. She whispered, "Emily." Then, with a quiver in her voice, she told him how her mommy had been sick for days, how she tried to make soup but couldn't reach the stove, and how she finally ran out for help when she couldn't watch her anymore. James kept his voice calm, but inside his heart ached. This little girl's courage had just saved her mother's life. That was the moment Emily had bolted from the house, her tiny legs carrying her toward the first sign of hope, the patrol car parked on the street. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the neighborhood as paramedics rushed inside and lifted her mother onto a stretcher. Emily clung to James's uniform, her fists clutching the fabric like it was the only anchor she had left. "Don't leave me," she whispered, trembling. James knelt, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I won't, I promise. We'll get through this together." True to his word, he drove her to the hospital, her small hand gripping his the entire way. In the sterile waiting room, time moved painfully slow. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy, the constant echo of footsteps adding to the tension. James never once stepped away. Finally, the doctor appeared, his expression weary but kind. Emily's mother, her name was Sarah, had collapsed from untreated pneumonia, exhaustion, and severe dehydration. She'd been pushing her body beyond its limits, working double shifts, skipping meals, and ignoring her health. Also, her daughter wouldn't go without. James felt a pang in his chest as he remembered the dark, cluttered house, the pile of unpaid bills. Sarah hadn't been careless. She'd been silently fighting a losing battle, too proud or maybe too afraid to ask anyone for help. Emily sat in a chair nearby, knees pulled tightly to her chest, her eyes fixed on the swinging hospital doors. Every time a nurse walked by, hope flickered across her face. James crouched beside her, his voice steady. "Your mom is strong. She's going to be okay. I'll make sure of it." In the days that followed, James kept his word. While Sarah slowly regained her strength, he visited often. Emily began to smile again, her laughter returning in small bursts whenever James entered the room. That's when he learned the full story. How Sarah had been abandoned by Emily's father, left alone with no family to lean on. She'd been cleaning houses, working night shifts, sacrificing everything for Emily, all while hiding the weight of her struggles. James knew one thing: if nothing changed, the cycle would start all over once Sarah was discharged. So he took action quietly. He reached out to local charities, called in favors from his fellow officers, and rallied the community. Within days, donations poured in, bags of groceries, stacks of clothing, even funds to cover overdue bills. Volunteers offered to repair the house. When Sarah finally walked out of the hospital, weak but alive, she was stunned. Her home was no longer a place of despair, but of hope. Clean, stocked, and cared for. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "I don't even know how to thank you." Emily's joy was impossible to hide. She hugged her mother tightly, then ran into James's arms, her small voice breaking as she whispered, "Thank you." That single word would echo in James's heart for the rest of his life. The story didn't end there. Inspired by the bravery of a little girl and the compassion of strangers, neighbors continued to look after Sarah and Emily. With community support, Sarah found steady work that gave her more time with her daughter. Slowly their lives stitched themselves back together. One evening, James stood outside their home, watching Emily giggle as she played in the yard, while Sarah laughed with neighbors on the porch. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just one rescue. It was proof that even the smallest voices, even a frightened little girl crying for help, can spark a wave of kindness strong enough to change lives. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to HOA-GLORIOUS Stories. Every act of support helps us bring more powerful reminders that kindness still exists in this world.